Hi there. In this lecture we see Janis Mileika against Mikhail Tal in 1953, the Latvian championship. We see d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, e6, and now white plays g3. The slight downside of g3, you could argue, is that without knight c3, black might be able to play e takes and try and make use of and emphasize the 3-2 pawn majority like you would in a Benoni structure. So e takes will transpose it into a kind of Benoni structure and giving black the opportunity to play aggressively, and we see that e takes, c takes. Instead of d6, you might think, for example, or maybe g6, teasing white for d6, we have b5 immediately, so there's no knight on c3 stopping this. Now, why would this be beneficial? What are all the ways it's beneficial? Or at least, shall we describe some more? Well, the bishop can actually fianchetto as well to target the diagonal. The 3-2 pawn majority, as mentioned, is emphasized. If white tries to put a break on things later, there still might be a passed pawn potential. Also, with b4, there's potential for clawing into dark squares in white's position like c3 later. So there are a number of interesting benefits of playing like this. For example, with b4 later and a fianchetto, the dark square strategy is more pronounced. There's also the potential for bishop a6 as well sometimes, especially if this bishop is leaving that diagonal. So it's very interesting, this b5. Sometimes it's not worth it just trying to exploit, well, a knight hasn't developed. Sometimes it's really not worth it. But it seems overall this is a very interesting and dangerous plan against white. White reacts with a4, trying to fix down the pawns. If d6, then we can see bishop b7 actually is rather nice, and queen b6, and this is a bit of a liability now. What would white be doing? a4? Then, it's pretty clear that black's going to be doing fine here. So, okay, a4, and Tal doesn't mind playing b4. We still have a 2-1 pawn majority. We have a hook into c3, and we also have facilitated potentially bishop a6 will be effective. We see b3 here, and now g6, bishop g2, d6, e4, bishop g7, bishop b2, and now black castles. Here, knight e2, rook e8, and white has certainly done something wrong to arrive at this position, because it seems black is significantly better, whatever happens. Knight d2 was played in the game, but as another example, if f3, just to demonstrate some of the strengths of this setup, let's say queen e7. Now this sets up some potential e-file pressure which could be useful for a knight sack when white's not looking. So let's bear that in mind. But let's say white castles, then we can actually play bishop a6, and on rook a2, as an example, c4, and you can see actually a passed pawn potential emerging, and it's quite dangerous. If b takes c4, bishop takes c4, so we've got a nice passed b pawn, and here knight takes e4 is possible because, hitting that bishop on b2. Knight c5 would mean there's great coordination now on e2. It's a real killer common square, e2. So this situation is in black's favour. There isn't an issue. It's not enough time to exploit the dark squares around the king here. So this is an example of disaster for white. And let's take that again and say queen d2, knight d7, and rook c8, knight e5. Black just has a glorious position, and with c4 is creating a great deal of issues. For example, this situation where the rooks are not really helping each other. There's a huge amount of dynamic potential here to be unleashed. For example, check, rook b8, and yeah, it's crashing through. Things are crashing through, basically. This is a very unfortunate position. The bishops are absolutely amazing here in this variation. There's past pawn potential. It's a gigantic position, essentially. So, okay, white played knight d2, but guess what? What does Mikhail Tal play in this position for 100 points? And this tactic, this type of tactic, has come up in modern Grandmaster games quite a bit, actually. Where you have an unprotected piece on b2 and the g7 bishop is protected by the king, it gives rise to an important type of exploitive tactic, tapping into that potential downside of the unprotected piece. So that's the clue to you. If you want to spend more time, I'll give you 5 seconds to pause the video again. Black to play here. Okay. Knight takes e4, yeah, unleashing an attack against the bishop. Bishop takes g7. If bishop takes e4, bishop takes b2, this situation is very unpleasant for white indeed. For example, white could be losing material like this with f5 coming. So we have bishop takes g7, but now for 100 points, black to play. Yeah, knight takes d2. The king is ready to be this thing at the end of the towel, taking the bishop at the end here. We have bishop h6. Just to put that on the board, queen takes, king takes g7. No problem for black. So bishop h6. But now the e-file has been blasted open as well. It's a key pawn, and the king's still in the center. So actually bishop g4, and the knight stopping f3. This is quite vicious. Bishop e3, knight f3 check. Bishop takes, rook g1, knight d7. This is absolutely glorious. White hasn't even managed to castle. Is this a Paul Morphy game where opponents aren't able to castle? Queen d2, and in fact nothing's been sacrificed. Knight f6, knight f4, g5, driving the knight back, rook e5. So white's really pinned now to e2. We see white castling, queenside in desperation, knight e4, queen c2, and now, yeah, a cashing out move, so to speak, to convert smoothly. What would you play here? To simplify and do increase your advantage here, you can just play for 100 points, bishop takes e2. So yeah, on queen takes, knight c3. And the game ended here. So white losing the exchange. It's pretty convincing that black hasn't really got enough weaknesses for white to balance things out here. White is just at a big disadvantage. Black is easily winning here. So a very neat little game, and it emphasizes that actually Mikhail Tal was to absolutely love the Benoni structures, and it's actually an interesting test case against the fianchetto system where white hasn't played knight c3. Are you daring enough to play b5? Does it look strange? It is kind of more justifiable here. In a way, there's a kind of weakness of where the bishop is. It's not on this diagonal that you might want to use from a6. So in these lines, especially with a4, you know, you're going to put your bishop on a diagonal. This bishop has neglected. This bishop is just sitting behind its own pawn, so it's not so dangerous. But also there are tactical liabilities here on the queen side because of this lovely fianchetto. And the pass pawn potential is another beautiful ingredient here. Essentially, it's a great variation of the Benoni Defence. Fantastic variation where black has extra space on the queen side, extra supercharged pass pawn potential, extra hooks on dart squares, extra pressure on the e-file. The tactical potential is ripe enough to even exploit it right here with knight takes e4. And white wasn't even able to castle. So a really truly beautiful game. It's in many people's collections, justifiably so. Very, very neat, concise game, and shows some of the venom of this b5 concept earlier on. So very, very neat. I hope you enjoyed that as much as me. Thanks very much. Hi there. Thanks for getting to the end of the YouTube video. If you would like to see other Mikhail Tal games, I actually have an amazing course for Mikhail Tal, which is currently at 4.9 with over 400 students. You can check this out from the Kingscrusher TV page. So Chess Strategy and Tactics, Mikhail Tal's amazing games. You can check out some free preview videos as well here. If you do expand all sections, you can see the preview links to get some free previews. So I hope you do check out this course index and the free previews. So I really had a thrilling time actually checking out Mikhail Tal's games. So yeah, the YouTube video here you saw was just a sample from this course. I hope you check it out. Okay, thanks so much. Oh, by the way, comments, questions, likes, shares, all appreciated. And if you did get to this part of the video, please do leave some sort of comment like Tal fan. Okay, thanks again.